Another reason is just the lack of community and third spaces.
Community and third spaces, baby. We are missing those.
It's been a year since I've graduated college, and honestly, it's been pretty lonely. I'm friends with my colleagues, but we don't really hang out that much outside of work. No, I don't.
Yeah, that thing about being friends with colleagues. A, you are in the same age range. B, if you guys are the same seniority level as each other. And C, if you guys have any real chemistry together. So it's really just a shot in the dark. I feel that's very situational.
I don't have a girlfriend. I go to the gym by myself. Have some hobbies that I like doing. Don't have any crazy vacations or anything too fun coming up. Yeah, I'm just chilling. That's how it is with everyone, basically. It's crazy. All of these people, like, we went to different colleges, live in different cities, going down different career paths. But it feels like everyone is almost living a version of the same reality. And that's myself included, too.
Yeah, after college, when you get a job, you really settle into this routine where you're too tired after work to pursue a lot of things that actually matter to you in life, such as friendships, weekend trips, side hustles, or hobbies, really. You have enough energy pretty much to do the bare minimum and not enough to strive for things you want more in life.
I'm very happy with the way things turned out. It's just that I'm happy, but I'm also lonely. Like, I realize that both of those things can be true at the same time.
That is 100% true. The human experience with loneliness is that it can pretty much pop out of the bushes and whack you over the head with a club at any given moment, even if you're doing great. I just had a weekend recently where I had a bunch of social events just lined up back to back to back to back. And there were still pockets and times in there where I felt like I wasn't really surrounded by people that I connected with, and that lack of connection absolutely felt lonely at times.
And another thing that I noticed is that the people at my apartment are kind of all the same as well. The main demographic of people who live here is also single people in their early or late 20s, just working and living alone or at the most with a pet. It just seems like finding a community nowadays is something really rare.
He hit the nail on the head with the community part. A lot of people I know have scattered friends or small groups here and there, but nothing necessarily that's cohesive and involves a lot of people. And a community is more than a lot of people. It's usually based around something, whether that's like an activity or a similar interest. And there are many different parts of the community. There's the organizers, old heads, the hired help, regular attendees, the people just getting into said thing. And when you are actually part of a community, it fills that hole of emptiness quite a great deal when you can go to a place and you see there's all these friendly faces that are, happy to see you, and you help other people, they help you. It's very easy to talk to people within that community because you are a known entity. And there's a lot to be said for actually being known and cared about within a community.
And for a while, I thought it was just a problem with me. I thought it was just something I was going through. Like, everyone else is probably fine. It's just my own personal fault. But then I started seeing the videos about, like, Gen Z loneliness, all of that kind of stuff. And then I thought, like, I guess this is a real thing, but it's probably only for people like me who are just online all the time. But then, from keeping in touch with my friends after college and actually getting to see a lot of them in person for the first time in a long time, it's like, damn, I'm not the only one. Everyone is lonely. And once again, you can be lonely, but also be happy. Like,
yeah, there's another part of that he didn't touch on, which is a lot of these lonely people aren't necessarily what you would imagine as a stereotypical lonely person. We tend to think of a lonely person that has a mattress in their apartment and they're just bed rotting all the time and they just don't go outside and don't put forth any effort into things. But because of the rise of social media, I feel in some ways individualism to a very extreme degree, a lot of people have lost connections and a sense of belonging when they move to a city for their first job, or when they move away from their hometown, or wherever they went to school. Because now you're in a completely new environment and you actually have to make serious effort to rebuild your connections. I think we see a lot of people on social media, including some of our old friends, and it looks like they're living the life. But most people, I would say, struggle with loneliness on a somewhat regular basis.
I wouldn't say that anyone I know in a similar situation is actually depressed or anything, nor am I. But we all still miss being in college, because that seemed like the last holdout for a social community. Something that's kind of sad that I've pointed out a lot of times is how back then with my friends, it's like every time we'd hang out, we would say, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow in class, or I'll see you later this weekend. But nowadays, every time we talk to each other, it's like, yeah, I'll try to see you sometime within the next few years. It's crazy.
Yeah, college is the most social environment most of us are ever in. Everyone usually lives pretty close to the actual campus. Everyone has something in common, which is higher education and trying to jumpstart their career. There's a million different groups that you can find common ground with, especially since everyone's generally the same age range. And in the US, I feel like it's pretty common for college to be a lot of people's first experience with what's essentially a walkable city, where it's easy to just bump into people day to day. And you don't have a lot of that in adulthood, because things are either really big and there's too many people that you don't know that are always running in and out of a city, or there's not enough people and you often end up being the new kid on the block that is trying to settle into a routine in a foreign place.
The time scale is just insane. Everything's different now, and you miss those days. One time I was just chatting with one of my friends on the phone, and I thought I came up with a really good idea. What I said was, yo, what if we got a bunch of guys from our friend group, and we'll just pool all of our money to buy a giant house or some kind of compound where we all live together and fuck around and all that. And my friend said to me, bro, you're literally just describing a frat house. And that's kind of true, but it made me sad to realize that something like this just isn't possible anymore. We've reached a point in our lives where there's no turning back. Because
that one hurts. Yeah, everyone comes to that realization after college. You can never go back home. You can't turn back time and have that same carefree situation that you had in college. It's one of those very poignant situations where you don't know what you have till it's gone, essentially.
Like it or not, everyone just ends up going their own way in life. Everyone's now pursuing different careers that'll take them to different cities and different places all around the world. They'll have their own situations to deal with, and will almost never all be together in one place anymore.
Yeah, that's maturing and going up in life is understanding that everything is always changing, and you can never truly go back home, so to speak.
Unless it's for a vacation or a trip or something, but those trips just almost never make it out the group chat, even though we always try, because everyone's on different schedules,
Ooh, that's big, yeah. The scheduling is huge. In college, everyone has classes, but they don't take up that much time, and since you all live close anyways, you're usually always able to do something. I remember going to hang out with people in between classes, and then meeting up with some other people from a student organization for a fundraiser later that day. It was so easy because everyone was so close together, and compared to the working world, had a pretty open schedule.
Has different days off, different stuff that you have to deal with, all of that. After college, you start to realize that the social aspect of things just doesn't hit the same anymore. But the other big issue with loneliness in my generation that I thought would at least be worth mentioning is obviously with dating and relationships. because something like leaving your friends after college, that's not something new. Every generation before has gone through that. But what is kind of a new thing is not being in a relationship, because it used to not be the common thing to be single in your 20s and 30s even. But nowadays it seems like there's more and more of those people. There's just not that many relationships anymore. I'm sure you might have seen the statistic about how like almost 70% of young men are single, birth rate.
I did not know it was that bad. I knew that relationships were in decline. I did not know almost 70% of young men were single. I think a lot of it has had to do with the rise of dating apps, which is a whole different video, and a really big increase in competition. For example, I have a friend whose homegirl literally got DM'd by Ron Artest, and that did not used to be part of the competition back in the day. You had Chad, Thad, and Brad from the football team that you had to contend with in high school or college. And now you have the same guys from all over the country that can just DM within the general area that women are in. And men, I think, feel this pressure to compete with these guys.
Young men are single, birth rates are declining, and all of that kind of stuff. And again, that was something I knew that people online would always talk about, but I thought maybe it's different in real life. But I realized that it's kind of true in real life too. And if you're my age, maybe you can confirm it as well. For example, out of all of the people that I knew in college, like the people who I at least knew well enough to know if they're in a relationship or not, I'd honestly say that less than 20% of those people are in a serious relationship. And you might be thinking like, oh, maybe you just chose the wrong sample pool, but honestly, I don't think so, because these aren't like lowlives living in their mom's basement who can't get a girlfriend. Just for context, I went to U of M, which is literally one of the top colleges in America. And I'm not saying that to brag, it's to say that all of these people that I know, for the most part, are very smart, very successful, very well put together, going into respected career fields like medicine, finance, consulting, engineering. And even out of these people, like a lot of my friends who are much more attractive than I am, the dating market is really hard for them, both on dating apps and in real life. I can't really speak for women because I'm not one of them, but if you're a single guy around my age range, I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. Obviously, there are a whole lot of reasons for the decline in relationships. Dating apps are a huge reason because it makes everything very shallow and superficial. Another reason is just the lack of community and third spaces where people can meet each other naturally. And
Community and third spaces, baby. We are missing those, especially in a super car-centric country like the US. I would love there to be some amazing public transportation, walkable cities, and third places. But unfortunately, our infrastructure, for many reasons, is just not there. And it's dirty, it's not safe, it's not convenient. Having a car is just superior to public transportation in its current state for many reasons. And that does take away a lot of the in-person interactions that you can get just from day to day. For example, if you're walking to work, you can stop by your favorite coffee shop and, grab something, get to know the regulars, and talk to people on your way to work, instead of being in what's essentially this closed-off mobile cubicle for an hour to and from work.
It's acceptable to go in with romantic intentions or whatever. Economic issues play a huge part in it too, because a lot of us just aren't even in the financial position to even think about starting a family in a few years. Like, it's just not possible within.
I've talked to a couple of my friends about this, and it's actually gotten so bad that some of them literally have to look at the decision between having kids or having a house at some point. It's literally that bad right now.
Inflation in the housing market and everything. And obviously dates become way harder to afford too. So yeah, it's just a huge cultural issue that I think is very difficult to.
Yeah, I went out for a coffee the other day and it was like almost like $10. I remember when you could get a Chipotle burrito for $7.
be fixed. It involves politics, it involves technology, it involves economics, just so many different factors that there's no simple solution to it. But yeah, when it comes to dating, like, I don't have any personal advice. All I'll say is I feel like it's a matter of just looking at the hand you've been dealt, knowing your position on the chessboard, and making the best move from there. Obviously, that sounds kind of generic, but for specific examples, I know some people who are thinking very strategically and looking at alternative and unconventional options. Things like arranged marriages, going overseas, like the whole passport bro thing, whatever. People are out here plotting because it's gotten so difficult. And finally, the other big thing that you can't really avoid when it comes to this conversation of loneliness is technology. And to some extent, things like AI, which, as you know, obviously has impacted my life, but just in general, I think it boils down to one thing, one sentence, that because of these new technologies, humans do not need other humans as much as we used to. So it makes...
I think we still do need humans as much as we used to, but not in certain capacities. In essentially career, business, finance, we don't need humans as much as we used to. But I think as far as personal fulfillment, connection, joy in life, I think it's still at a premium. There's just something built into us that really craves that mineral of human in-person connection.
Makes us isolated and atomized, or whatever you want to call it. Like in the past, when we were, let's say, living on farms or some shit, we would really need to rely on other people for our own happiness and well-being, and this would cultivate social connections. We would get joy and fulfillment and fun from doing things with the people in our tight-knit communities. But the problem is that nowadays, with the internet and social media, we can so easily get an artificial version of that happiness and fulfillment without even needing to put in the effort to interact with others.
It's a version of that happiness and fulfillment, but it never hits like the real thing.
Other people. So that means there's less of an incentive to do that. It takes much more time and effort and investment to meet with a friend than to scroll on Reels or play a video game or watch Squid Game or some shit.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest obstacles that people face with friendships, especially after college, is it takes effort. It takes time. It takes energy. Not only do you have to find a place where you can meet potential new friends, but if you go there and nobody's even in your age range, now you gotta go to a new thing, and you already spent all that time, energy going to something that was, I guess, for lack of a better word, fruitless. And it can be very tiring, especially on top of a 40-hour plus work week for a lot of people. And it is absolutely easier to just indulge in some sort of digital consumption rather than invest time and energy in the search for connection for most adults.
And when we have those options, like option one of putting actual time, effort, and investment into a real social connection versus getting cheap dopamine, but from something that's extremely easy, people have a tendency to choose the easier and most energy efficient option. Another thing to mention is just how technology has made everyday tasks like way too convenient for us, to the point where we don't even need to be face to face with another human being to get stuff done anymore. 50 years ago, you'd have to go to the grocery store, buy food, you'd see some familiar faces there, maybe chat up the cashier, hit on a cute girl, whatever. But nowadays, you can, instead of that, just get an Instacart or an Uber Eats delivery right to your doorstep with a click of a button without ever having to make contact with another human being.
I would also argue that people that do most of their everyday necessity chores like shopping and cooking via just apps, it's a lot more expensive from what I understand. So I think a lot of people, including myself, still go to grocery stores, and that is a surprising source of the human experience, let's say, because you're not going to the grocery store and necessarily chatting with everyone, but you are around other people who have similar needs as you, which is why they're there. There are opportunities that pop up from time to time that do help fill your cup a little bit when it comes to social interaction.
Another example is 50 years ago. If you wanted to watch something, you'd call up your friends and you guys would go to the movie theater together. Maybe grab some food after the movie theater, do something fun. Nowadays, if you want to watch something, you just stream that shit on Netflix and Hulu and watch it on your couch.
Let me bring back the phrase LAN parties. People don't have those anymore. People just play online together, and don't get me wrong, I do that too. It's very convenient, especially if friends don't live super close to you. But the golden age of LAN parties was so fun. Having sleepovers with your friends and staying up all night playing Halo against the internet, or even League of Legends, just queuing up in a 5-stack and pulling stupid stuff against other teams online. It hits way different when you're in the same room and you can joke around while you do that, because there's options to do other stuff too. Somebody's hungry, let's go down to the convenience store and risk it all on one of those hot dogs that have been rolling on the burner for 48 hours. And then we can go to the park and chill out there, or, hit up another friend, go to their house. There's just so much more activities and experiences that you can have when you're all together in physical proximity.
Kind of sad if you think about it. Anyways, I feel like we're coming to the end of my little rant. One thing I do need to mention is that I don't mean for this to come off as just me completely complaining about society or whatever. Obviously, there are legitimate large-scale issues, but there are some things that you can fix and should take personal responsibility for as well. Like, I'll admit, a lot of it is my own fault based on the decisions I've made. I'll totally acknowledge that my situation in terms of loneliness is probably even worse than the average person, because I chose to move to a city where I didn't know anyone. I chose to do remote work instead of a normal job where at least you have some kind of social circle that's built into it. So this is not me trying to blame society, at least not completely, only partly. And again, even all things considered, like, personally, I'm very happy with the way things are. It's just a trade-off that I made. I chose a path that gave me more freedom and individuality, which is good, but at the expense of community, even more so than the average person.
Yeah, I would say for anyone that does remote work, you absolutely have to put in more effort in cultivating relationships than other people, because you aren't even out in an area that exposes you to more opportunities. For example, I work in a different city than I live in, and because of that, there are all of these social meetups and hangouts and activities that are happening that I would not have access to if I just stayed in my city and did everything from home, including ordering groceries, working, and staying inside all day.
And I'm fine with living with the consequences of that, but obviously I'm gonna try to take steps to make it better. Anyways, I don't really know what's a good way to end off the video. Just some points I wanted to make about the topic of loneliness after college and just living in the modern world, which in general seems to get lonelier for a lot of people. I feel like it's something that a lot of people can relate to, really no matter how old you are or where you are. So if you have any thoughts on this, as always, please feel free to leave a comment. I feel like there can be some really interesting discussions, and I try to respond to, or at least give a heart to, every comment, so be sure to do that. If you're interested in seeing travel and outdoors related stuff, check out my...
Yeah, he hit a lot of good points there. So let's take a look at the comments here. One of the highest upvoted ones here is, I'm in a 200-person lecture hall and the professor asks us to chat with our side people to work on problems posted in class. It is dead silent. I look to my right and left to try to silently get their attention, and they just stare at their computer. Our generation is socially destroyed for the most part. It's even worse for those who didn't attend college. It's way easier to face a screen than to face other people. And I think the younger generations have really been raised on phones and computers, Hey, that's essentially the easy way out when it comes to dealing with silence, awkwardness, anything like that. You just whip out your phone, stare at that for a little bit, and you're all good in the hood. Not to mention that it's just a source of endless dopamine if you want to keep, smashing that button on your phone. Gen Beta's childhood will even be more cooked. That's why this channel is here. We're trying to get people back to in-person connection. Ah, here it is. This person's confirming essentially what I just said. I genuinely feel that the pandemic has deeply impacted communication. Life during college for me felt lonely because people have difficulties in communicating with each other. Absolutely. Everyone is on their phone so much, and some use it in order to avoid in-person conversations. We've all seen the memes of the guys just flipping through their weather app and calculator when they're at a function, and that's people's way of dealing with awkwardness or anxiety or discomfort, is avoiding it by using the phone. And when you do that, you are not growing at all. You are not getting outside of your comfort zone.